And we're live. Hello and welcome to the Happiness Is podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison from Happiness is Egg-Shaped, and we are back with another big hitter from the great game of rugby. And today I am absolutely delighted to be joined by rugby-playing author, the magnificent Catherine Spencer, who also shares my exact birthday, although she looks a good 10 to 12 years younger than I am. We also share that birthday with Johnny Wilkinson, who hasn't agreed to come on the show yet, but we start at the top with Catherine today. I am very excited to hear all about the journey and what's happening now, because being that crazy lady that she is, who never likes to settle, she's decided to become a teacher. Go figure that one. I am really looking forward to hearing all about this journey that has brought Catherine to this point here, and all about the book, and all about England, and all about an unbelievable number of Grand Slams. So without any further ado, please welcome to the Happiness Is pod, Catherine Spencer. Hello.
Hello. I think that might be the nicest welcome I've ever received. Shall we just leave it there?
Well, we're done. Yeah, I love it. I'm so pleased to see you. So you find yourself now on half-term holiday, is that right?
I do, yeah. Holidays, school holidays. It's great. Loving it. Sun shining as well. Well-timed weather for this half term. So yeah, a relatively new experience for me. Well, apart from when I was at school a long time ago. But yeah, just getting towards the end of my training year as a teacher, and yeah, very much enjoying the school holidays.
And becoming a teacher, what's the rationale behind that?
What am I doing? Yes, well, yeah, my career's been a bit wobbly like that. I was prior to teaching and sort of after rugby retirement, I ran my own company, Inspiring Women, which is a speaker agency, which relied heavily on events and people being in the same room together. So it was going really well. I'd run the business for 6 years or so, working for myself. I then took a bit of time out to have my daughter, who's just turned 2. I can't believe that. And just coming back, just putting some more time into it, I created, the amazing Max at Ruckin Rugby created me a lovely new website, was just kind of relaunching, rebranding, and then COVID, which we won't talk too much about, hit, and my kind of business went to zero overnight. So it kind of forced me to reassess where I was really. And teaching something I've always thought about. My mum was a teacher, my brother's a teacher, my other brothers worked in education. And I've kind of always, I did my work experience when I was 14 as a teacher. And I finally thought, you know what, I'm going to go for it, and lots of transferable skills. I can stand up in front of an audience every day and chat. So, who wouldn't want to do that?
Yeah, I know, exactly. It's a performance, as we were discussing a little bit off camera. Now, I read this when it first came out. I've got the signed copy for Bruce. Happiness is Egg-Shaped, Catherine Spencer, number 8, and I absolutely love it. And that's a pretty bold move to write a book, and you did it all on your lonesome. Now, say what you will about rugby forwards, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I was a back row. We've got some brains back there, but sorry, obviously I don't mean that front row. Yeah, do you know what? I like writing, and I've done a fair bit of writing over the years, sort of various publications. But I've always thought, I've got stories to tell, and at the same time, going into bookshops, I love going into bookshops. I love it. But going into bookshops, you go into the sports biography shelves, and you kind of like have to hunt out for any books written by or about women. Particularly in the rugby world, very, very rare. I was like, do you know what? I've been thinking all this time, what should I write about? What should I write about? I was like, I'm going to write about kind of my story, or our story in women's rugby. So that's exactly what I did. I just wrote it all myself, Bruce. Yeah, which again is quite unusual, putting some ghostwriters out of work. But I really enjoyed it. It was hard. It was hard getting all those words onto paper, and quite emotionally hard to write it at times, and then used an amazing publishers, Unbounders, who are kind of quite a forward-thinking publishers and happy to take a punt on people like me, I guess, whereas perhaps traditional publishers wouldn't have done so.
It's even just the dedication at the front, which I've now got open. You begin with thank you to your family. You then have your husband. You then have a bit of a thank you to Stephen Jones, who told you to bloody get on with it and write it yourself.
Yeah.
So other people have obviously been hugely important to support you through the journey that you've had. How easy have you found that to not rely on other people, but to seek out help? Or have you kept it internally and decided, no, I'm a big girl, I need to do this myself?
With the book, certainly was a very kind of probably very personal project, really. And I wrote, yeah, you're right, my family have been hugely important to me over the years. I've been so fortunate to have such a supportive family throughout, well, before my England rugby career and through that and beyond. But the book was very much a sit down, get the words on paper myself. But yeah, Steve Jones was he was very much, Kath, you've got to write this, you have to write this, you have to write this. And perhaps at times when I was finding it a bit difficult, I would just listen to his words in my head. And for those people that don't know, Steve Jones has been one of the sort of biggest kind of supporters of women's rugby in a way before it was even slightly trendy as it is now.
Yeah,
it's kind of
yeah, no,
it's become
totally.
a thing now, hasn't it? Steve Jones was writing about women's rugby 25 years ago, and he's been hugely supportive of me, in my career. And so I met up with him a few times, sort of about it. It's like, you have to write it, you have to write it. So I kind of thought, well, I have to. Steve Jones told me I have to write it. But I did enjoy it. But yeah, I used to write in various different places, take my little laptop with me everywhere, in cafes, on trains, at home, on the beach, anywhere, just trying to get more words down. And yeah, it was a good old process. But yeah, hurt the old brain cogs occasionally.
What was the challenge? What were there any parts that you found really quite difficult, or was sharing any part of the story with maybe your family or your teammates difficult?
Yeah, I thought, if I'm going to do this, I have to do it properly. And I didn't want the book to kind of be different just because it was written by a woman. I wanted to be kind of different for its honesty. And I think as the kind of first biography with a women's rugby player, particularly in this country, I kind of thought it had to have a bit of a punch. And I think it did with the honesty. But I didn't really show it to anyone first. So the first time my parents read it was in the I've got one too, just in case, in the book, when it was published, when the book came out. So I was a bit kind of, I wonder what their, reaction was going to be like. And I talk about retiring. I talk about, actually, it must have been really difficult for my family, but I never really spoke to them about it at the time. So that was kind of a bit, in a way, having a conversation with my family through my book. So I was a bit like, I wonder what they're going to think. And you always want the people around you to kind of, you want praise, don't you, from the people around you and the people that are closest to you and the people you love as much. I wanted to make them proud, and I think I did that mostly on the rugby pitch, but I was, I really wanted to do that with this book as well, and I think I did.
Oh, absolutely. And it is very, very honest. Now, the last bit of the dedication says, "This book is also for me. I needed this book more than I realized when I started it." What does that mean?
I needed to. It was kind of a form of therapy for me. I found sort of retirement very difficult, and then I found retirement mixed with not winning World Cups very difficult. And sometimes, or often, I forget to think about what I did do and think a lot about what I didn't do. And I'm still guilty of that now. This kind of book just helped me look at that a little bit more. And I also found that I needed to kind of package my career up a little bit. I retired just over 10 years ago now for England, and I still think about it all the time. I can't I find it hard to stop thinking about it. But with this book, I have kind of, I've literally put it in 2 covers. I can sort of put it there, and like, one day my daughter, maybe, she'll read it and she'll see what mummy did. And it's kind of like, I needed to kind of have something tangible there so that, this is going to sound, so that maybe it's not forgotten, and I'm not going to just kind of, I kept loads and loads of like newspaper cuttings and medals and need to, they're in a box, they're somewhere else, like they're kind of, in storage somewhere. But this book, I can have that, it's a little bit, I can have that on the bookcase, and I kind of think, yeah, that's brilliant, that's there. And that, now I can move on a little bit. But it was definitely a form of therapy. It was cheaper than going to actual therapy, that I could just sit there and, and write it myself. So yeah, I didn't realize when I started, when I finished it, I was kind of like, who am I writing this book for? I thought I was being this, like, yeah, I'm writing it for, for women and equality, and getting more female books on bookshelves. I was writing for myself as well, but it's a long project. I think you probably have to.
And is it a bit like a game where you're so engrossed in it and you don't want the whistle to come? Was the finish actually? Was there a little bit of sadness? Was there a little bit of deflated feeling when it was over, or was there the feeling of euphoria of achievement and hoping it's printed and hoping people read it?
Probably all of the above. When I actually finished the words, when I finished writing, I was 3 months pregnant and feeling extremely sick. I had a horrible pregnancy. So right then I was just like, just get it away from me. I'm finished. I've got the words. And then there's quite a long process. So it felt like a long process. So I kind of crowdfunded for the publishing cost. Unbound as crowdfunded the publishing cost. So that was kind of a long process. And then you write the book. And then after that, you've got this whole editing process, there's various editing stages. So I'd finished writing it, feeling very sick, and then a few weeks or months later, you get it back for like the first edit. Oh, I've got to have to look at it again, and then you get another edit. It was quite a long process, but then there was kind of real excitement, coming up to sort of near book launch and things like that, but with some nervousness as well. It's kind of myself on a page. I want people to like me. So it was really important to me they like the book as well. And most people have. Some people haven't, and that's fine, but most people have. And so loads were made, a bit like playing rugby as well itself. Loads of emotions.
Yeah, and there are people who will watch a rugby performance and say you played well, and there are others who will probably focus on the negatives and tell you what you've not done well. You've got the quote on the front from your buddy Maggie, who says, inspiring, powerful, emotional, and honest. How important was it for you to get feedback from your contemporaries and your peers who could probably have written something quite similar, although you weren't academy straight into pro, you weren't following probably the now what is a common male model. You were professional person outside, you were having relationships, you were having all the things you had to do and still playing international rugby. So how important was it that you were representing your peers?
It was really. I wanted kind of people to know that it was hard. I mean, it's meant to be hard, isn't it? Playing international. I actually talk about that in a book. One of my former colleagues said that, before a game, it's meant to be hard. He's like, oh yeah, of course it is. So yeah, it kind of was important for me for people to realise that. Often when we were playing, people thought we were professional. People thought we were getting paid, and were really shocked to hear when we weren't. And I kind of I said to teammates at the time, I think this is good. People think we're professional. This is a good thing. We should take that as a massive compliment. But it was blimmin' hard work doing what we did. But we did it. We didn't have to. It was a choice. Anyone who plays sport, any level, whether they're paid or not, it is a choice. And I think sometimes we forget that. But it was important to me to kind of represent our game well, generally, and represent kind of my teammates and the work that we put in. That was important to me. I wanted to show that I'm in a good light.
And do you love the game enough that you would have played if you weren't an international? So, that lifestyle, part of it was probably driven because you were experiencing personal success. You had that drive. Would you have still played the game if you weren't an England international, do you think?
I definitely would have played the game. We're like a rugby family, and I was playing in the back garden before I went up to the rugby club. And then my home club, the Folkestone, was like my extended family in a way. And I just absolutely loved our team at Folkestone. If I didn't happen to get to the next step and the next step, I would have been playing there for as long as I could. I absolutely loved it. I'm a rugby person who happened to kind of get quite good, and get to quite a good level. But I love I love rugby, and I was probably used to be more a fan maybe than I am now, but I absolutely loved every minute of playing rugby. I was just fortunate enough to be able to play it with a with an international shirt on my back, but it's just a great game. You know, you get to run into people.
I love hearing that, because sometimes I wonder, especially now the game for men is professional and women, I'm still not sure I can call it professional, but becoming more professional. I still sometimes wonder if players would play if they love it, or if they're doing it because they're good at it. But it's brilliant to hear that you would have played regardless, and I think that often helps you become successful, doesn't it, if you love what you're doing?
Yeah, you've got to love what you're doing, and particularly, you know, when you're kind of spending every kind of waking moment apart from working and sleeping, like committing to it. You have to love it, don't you? And I kind of think you probably have to love it if you're getting paid. Do you? I don't know. I never got paid to play, so I can't really comment on that. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I was probably rare for my age in women's rugby that I'd been involved in the game so long. It was certainly rare for the girls to be playing in the 80s when I first started. Old, you know. So I built up that kind. You know, Nolly Waterman was like this. You know, she started when she was very young, and yeah, it's a bit younger than me, but like it was a rarity. Most women came into the game when they're a bit older, maybe like, you know, university or something like that. So perhaps they didn't have that kind of deep rooted passion for the game. And I think that certainly showed at the other end, because we kind of lose a lot of women to the game when they retire. And I think maybe that's because the roots are not deep enough, not strong enough, not kind of like ingrained enough. But perhaps that's changing now, and more, you know, more girls start when they're younger. But I wonder, Bruce, you're right, I wonder where it's going to go, how it's going to go as it continues to get more professional. Hopefully it'll stay in a good place.
Yeah, I hope so. And I think you started in clubland, whereas if you start in the uni, you might have travelled to be part of that uni, which means you go home or you move somewhere else for work. So your original sort of site of falling in love with the place isn't local, whereas being involved in your local club probably means you have a greater sense of belonging. How strong was that sense of belonging for you? You know, in the book, you speak really highly of the people that were involved and the opportunity they gave you, and how they sent you off to the next stage with encouragement and love, but also with the, you know, please don't forget us and come back.
Yeah. Oh, so strong, Bruce. Like I love my club. I mean, you know, there's loads of amazing rugby clubs up and down this country. This, you know, Folkestone happened to be my home club, and I'm really pleased it was, because it was just brilliant. I was hugely supportive, like hugely kind of proud, really, and very much, as you say, it's like, you know, we really support you going to the next stage. We'd love you to stay here and play here, but we support you going to the next stage because we see what you can do. But this is your home. You're welcome here all the time, and I think that's one of the most amazing things about rugby and most clubs. And, you know, I went on to play with some like really great clubs. And, you know, when I came back to Kent and played for Aylesbury, I loved playing with that team. My home club was always Folkestone, wherever I was playing, you know, whether I was at Bristol, who again, I loved playing for Bristol. My home club's always Folkestone. And I think, you know, you're right, having that home, having that, you know, that place where you've kind of developed as a, you know, as a person is really important. And I just, yeah, I can't speak, you know, I can't speak highly enough of them, really. And yeah, they're just brilliant.
I love it. Yeah. I love Clubland. It's my favourite place, and there's so much there. So I think clubs do a great job of getting people through the door. The challenge is keeping them coming back through the door. What was it made you keep going back to Folkestone?
The people, the people. But, you know, I've been going to Folkestone since I was, you know, 7, 8. You know, my brothers were there, my dad played there, and, you know, my best friends were there. You know, it was kind of, you know, a place to meet my friends as well, wasn't it? And it was just a lovely environment, really. You know, my parents still live in their house at the moment. Actually, they still live, you know, just down the road from the club, and it's, you know, it's somewhere that I'll always go to, because I feel like they gave me so much. You know, I feel that, you know, I want to be there, but part of me feels like, you know, I should still support that because I got so much from them over the years. But I'm like you, Bruce. I like club rugby. I think it's brilliant. You know, we've got kind of a huge range, haven't we? We've got this sort of professional end at the top, and as you say, this kind of route through academies and stuff like that. And I'm just a bit old school. I just like club rugby. I kind of like it's just I just enjoy being there. And you know, it's brilliant to experience, you know, stuff at the top end and watch sort of professional rugby and stuff. But you know, I think the true values are probably where they don't shout about them the loudest. They don't have a huge marketing budget to talk about them. It's where they are in action, aren't they? That's where I'd like to be.
So, right, I love this. I wasn't sure where we were going, but I'm delighted we've got to Clubland. So you're now in front of a group of kids who are saying, what's the point? What's the point in going to a rugby club? Now, here's some of the issues I experience, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts. There's no almost immediate gratification, because the things you're talking about are things built up over a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's a difficult thing, I find, to sell to parents, because you're playing a much longer game. Relationships and those soft social skills are worth their weight in gold. It's where probably I've got a lot of my confidence to speak to people, international rugby players, international rugby coaches, because the common bond we share is through this game that I was able to access as a slower than a fortnight in the jail number 10 with international rugby players who have done amazing things. And that clubhouse is, I used to say this to a local club that I was involved with. Yes, we want them to come and play, but we want them in the clubhouse, because that's how we keep them. Now, I'm not sure how effective or successful I've ever been. I still bang the drum for Clubland because I think it's an amazing place. How can you go about selling that to people, to a group of kids that are in front of you, or to their parents, or to the local community in Folkestone? How can you sell Clubland to them?
It's really it's really difficult, isn't it? And it's kind of like a question we're always asked, or something, you know, over the whole time. You know, when I was at Folkestone playing for the team, we were constantly trying to recruit. You know, down in Folkestone we live by the sea, so we've automatically lost half our sphere of influence. So it's doubly hard. You know, all those recruitment. You know, in women's rugby and men's rugby, you know, lots of men's clubs used to run out with 4 men's teams and a Colts team and a Vets team, and some of them might even have a women's team as well. And then they've got a whole raft of mini and junior sections, which are quite often holding up many clubs financially. And that, you know, all kind of all different sections of the clubs are struggling a bit now, aren't they? And we're competing with kind of flexible sport, or we're kind of competing with the fitness industry. We're competing with kind of different types of jobs, different types of working now. We're competing with Sunday shops, which never used to be around, did they? In the days, you know, mini rugby early on, that's what you did. You went and played sport because the shops weren't open. We're competing with like computing gaming, you know, which is kind of like so many kids are kind of interested now. So we have got a really, really difficult job. And I think you're right. Until you're in it, until you're in the middle of it, you don't quite realise how special it is. So trying to say people go there, oh, you'll meet friends, oh, you'll you know, you'll become a great team worker, oh, you can put that on your CV, you know, like, but it's difficult, isn't it? It's just, I think rugby clubs are very good at creating like this really welcoming environment, and you know, for younger kids it's getting those parents on board, isn't it? And actually getting that sort of social connection for parents is very important, I think, because that then keeps them in the club and their kids have to go and then they'll learn to love it, I think. And then you get older and you played a game and then you're back in your club on a, you know, been watching the guys on a Saturday or whatever, or you've been watching a women's game on a Saturday and you're back in your club and you're singing and you got a pint in your hand and you look around, there's all your friends and there's people from the opposition who are also kind of friends, you know. And I just think, and you experience that, you think, yeah, that's why I'm here. But it takes that time, doesn't it? I think you have to build that social connection, don't you? Particularly, you know, with mini rugby or whatever, you have to build that connection for parents. So it becomes something more than simply standing on the side of the pitch. You know, it becomes something bigger than that. And I think, you know, most clubs I think are good at building that. I think that's the key for youth rugby.
I love it. I feel like you should mic drop now. That is just gold. There's so much in there. My girls are now 9 and 11, and they've run around rugby clubs. And the thing as a dad, I know they're safe. And if anything was to happen to them, you know, if they fell over, they would be able to, you know, someone would pick them up and say, you know, Dad's over there, or I'll go and get your dad. And the other thing they love is a raffle.
Oh yeah. Who doesn't love a raffle, Bruce? Who doesn't love a raffle?
The two of them love a raffle to the point where at one of my previous clubs at Murrayfield Wanderers, I used to have to buy J2O to put into the raffle just in case they won, because it was all alcohol and they couldn't, but they were the ones that had the tickets. So I would buy it and I'd give it to the captain, Murray Hastie, and say, right, if Maisie and Katie come up, give them the J2O. So I would have to put J2O in every week just in case they won. But
Oh, that's very nice. You didn't just get them to transport the alcohol.
No,
Just bring the bottle of wine to mummy. Very good.
They absolutely love the clubhouse, as do I, and it's where the relationships are built. And like you're saying about the parents, that's where you get the investment in them. And I, as a coach, I always tried to, one of my old assistant coaches used to laugh because he used to say, I knew all the boys' mums. But I used to make a point of speaking to all the parents because I wanted them to feel welcome in the clubhouse, and I wanted and clubhouses can be intimidating places for people like you and I. You know, we probably feel quite comfortable, but for some people it can be intimidating, especially if you weren't there from 7 and 8 like you were.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It can be. I was about. It's sort of two sides, like, because I agree with your point from earlier. Rugby clubs are just incredibly safe places, which is fantastic. And then you can go around the world, and there's always a welcoming place for you. No matter where you are, you've got friends, haven't you? You can go turn up to a rugby club, but equally, it can be intimidating sometimes. And how do we get people to kind of walk across that door, and kind of sometimes we have to take it out into the community, don't we, and kind of show that. But ultimately, we want people in our clubs, we want people in our clubhouses. That's what keeps things ticking over, doesn't it? So they can be, they can be intimidating. Anywhere sort of new or different, it's a bit like the first girl in school feeling, isn't it? Going somewhere new. So it's quickly and very quickly, isn't it? Bringing those people together and kind of, showing that actually it's a very warm, friendly place.
I love it. Right, let's step out of clubland and let's talk. The first one, let's go back to the book. Who would you like? What other player would you like to write a book? Whose story would you like to read?
Oh, goodness me. Well, I mean, you've spoken to Rockstar Rocky. I think she's got a brilliant story. She's spanned the game, hasn't she? From sort of very much amateur. I'm not referring in any way to her age.
Way of saying what?
She's got incredible staying power. I mean, she will carry on playing until she's literally kind of wheeled off the pitch. She can't. But she's just such a top person. So I'd kind of, I would love to read her book. Who else? Yeah, she'd probably be my. I'd quite like to read Streeting Graham's book.
Okay.
They're just on their podcast series, and it's very interesting. Graham, particularly, I think I have so much time for him. Their time with England stopped rather abruptly, and I don't know a lot of things they can't say, not allowed to say, etc., etc. I'd love to read a book when they could talk all about that. But also Graham's got, he's got really sort of interesting, what he's done, where he's been, and his sort of transition into the women's game, and the sort of the journey he went on, and then his kind of what he's done kind of post England, or what he hasn't done. He's now, I think he's going to be involved with London Irish to set up their sort of women's team. That's brilliant. See him back in the women's game, actually. His book could be quite interesting. Tamara again, like you've kind of latched onto the characters there, haven't you? Tamara and Rockstar, they'd be brilliant. But then some players sort of slightly kind of before my time. Jill Burns, actually Steve Jones, I think they did set about a project writing a book.
Okay.
Happened in the end. She's got some stories. She's a great storyteller. I just looked up to her so much. She'd be brilliant. But yeah, probably around the world as well. There'd be some interesting stories from there.
Awesome.
Yeah, Rockstar will tell a good, but she'd have some good photos as well, particularly when she was younger. Photos that she probably wouldn't want to be in the book.
Yeah, she's absolutely gold. You've spoken about Jill Burns there. Tamara spoke about not needing to see it to be it, and that's one of the things now that's you said it before about women's rugby now becoming a bit fashionable to be involved in, and you're mentioning guys there who were involved maybe before it was fashionable, and they probably hold a lot of kudos amongst those who were involved because they were doing it because they wanted to and they valued it, and that gives them that kind of standing in the community. Is there a place for that more now, you think, than there was before? Did you need that? Did you need to see it to be it?
Well, I mean, I didn't see much women's rugby as I was growing up. I saw rugby all around me. I was a huge Bath fan. My dad's from there, so we would just watch, and they used to be good. The golden decade. Still got the video, the VHS. Can't play anywhere. I loved watching that. I loved kind of watching Bath, and then we used to go to Twickenham when they're in the Pilkington Cup final, used to be called, and watched several of those. The days when you could then go on the pitch at the end. There was one day, it was amazing. Gareth Chilcott Coochie, one of the biggest, brilliant, best personalities in the game. And I remember Bath had won another Pilkington Cup final. Gosh, I can't remember who they were playing against that year. And I just remember stood on the pitch at Twickenham, and they'd gone up the step to lift up the trophy. And me and these what felt like hundreds of thousands of probably grown men, and I was probably that age, we go Coochie, Coochie, Coochie. And I just loved those sort of main, rugby was all around me, and then obviously the local club as well. And then just I saw rugby. I didn't see women's rugby, and the first real time I saw a glimpse of kind of women's rugby, and it was seeing Jill Burns on Rugby Special with the brilliant John Inverdale a long, long time ago. There was like a women's rugby player on TV. What is that about? What? There must be some mistake. And that was brilliant watching her. And then I saw Burnsy play when I went to university in Cardiff. So I went down to kind of check it out, and there was Six Nations on at the same time. So we went to watch Wales versus England. That was kind of my first taste of live, proper international rugby. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty good. So I saw rugby. I didn't really see women's rugby, but I saw lots of sport. I saw some women's sport. Sally Gunnell was kind of the person. I was very kind of quite prevalent in the media even back then. So yeah, I saw rugby. I didn't see a lot of women's rugby, but I suppose because I was so in the middle of it, I could not play it. But if I wasn't in that environment and I didn't see it at all, it would have been difficult to start it. I wouldn't have thought that was something that I could do. So I think there is a certain sense of you do need to see it, or there needs to be opportunity everywhere. When I was playing, the nearest opportunity for some girls was like 250 miles away. Now that's not an opportunity, really, is it? So that's the biggest thing I think that's trying to change.
And when you see social media now, who do you look at and think, I mean, that's going to get people playing? That's a role model. That's somebody that youngsters are going to latch onto. Who do you see and you think, yeah, they're the future?
Yeah, I mean, oh goodness. Well, I mean, Sunday was an example, wasn't it, of the Premier 15s final? They showed it on BT, didn't they? And there's just social media everywhere. You could read about it in the papers. Couldn't do that a few years ago. And with the birth of social media, it's been really good for women's sport and women. And there certainly is kind of a following now, isn't there? Bertha's been doing great things, hasn't she? Bertha with her girls' rugby club, which has been brilliant, inspiring so many young girls to kind of play. And there's some real characters, isn't there? Mo Hunt is doing brilliantly. I know she's been injured, but she's doing brilliantly, and sort of having more women and players and commentary and things like that. She's been fantastic. Nolly Waterman as well, my old mate, as in she's not old, we're old mates. You know what I mean, Bruce? Well, she's getting on, but I can't say she's old because I'm obviously about 20 years older than her because she's still young. She's kind of that person, and she's so bubbly as well, Nolly, every time she's on something, and that, that's going to inspire youngsters as well. And then a whole crop of players that are coming through when they've only known profile and media and social media, and it's just going to become normal to them, isn't it? So a whole crop of youngsters that are going to inspire. So it's going to be a ripple effect, isn't it?
The thing I find on social media with girls' clubs or women's clubs, the social aspect seems so appealing to me. Some of those softer skills that you're talking about. Now, I don't necessarily mean that you're seeing pictures of them in the clubhouse drinking a pint. I mean the selfies they take during training and some of the videos that they post. You can see women together enjoying what they're doing. It's purposeful, it's athletic, and to me, everybody seems welcome.
Yeah. Oh goodness me. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone is welcome. And whatever club you go to, sort of Premiership, or just started a new club somewhere, haven't played a game yet, everyone is welcome everywhere, which is brilliant. But I think female rugby players, whether they realise it or not, consciously or unconsciously, still feel they have a duty to share the game, and for exactly the reasons you said, and that might not necessarily be in the men's game so much. So there is this duty to kind of, actually, we've got it, which is quite a responsibility, really. But it's like, we have to inspire the next generation. We have to kind of keep on going, and I think every player involved in the game feels that. So I think that's why we see a lot of that. And, people are latching onto social media, aren't they, more and more? There's definitely a responsibility to kind of tell our story, and actually it's okay to play. And that was a bit interesting, actually, when I this isn't a plug back to it, but it does follow on. When I wrote my book, I didn't really write it for youngsters, and there's probably bits in the book that it definitely isn't aimed at youngsters. And there's this sort of expectation as a female player that, that's kind of inspiring the next generation, or how are you going to get more people into the game, or how are you going to do this? It's like, don't necessarily think that men would get those same questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it is interesting. So I think, social media has been brilliant for the women's game. And but as you say, you can see these just like brilliant, happy, smiley faces with friends kind of thing. And it's brilliant to share that. It's been brilliant to, share it on a different medium. I think everyone still feels this kind of like, we need to, as part of our job, part of our job to do that,
And do you realise, are you willing and able and broad enough shoulders to take that you're playing a big part in that?
It's been nice to sort of look back on that, and I kind of think about it, occasionally I'm like, it'd be quite a good time to be involved, wouldn't it? You'd get some quite nice profile, this and that, get some really good support at club rugby, get to, get access. I was lucky enough to get access to things with England rugby, but at club rugby you might even get like a physio. That's quite cool, isn't it? And you could get like some nice kit that fits, although I don't really like fitted shirts, but
Me
like
either.
all this amazing stuff. You get to play club rugby on TV. That's pretty cool, rather than on the fourth pitch over the road round the back of the trees. So I kind of think, it would be quite a good time to play. But having said that, I'm really proud of the time that I played, and just sort of starting to get into that birth, post 2010, that sort of birth of kind of a little bit more media attention, and some kind of, for the sport, a little bit more profile, a little bit more cued. I'm kind of proud of being part of that. And as the sport grows, I suppose people will have perhaps a slightly lesser of an influence in a way, just because the sport's got bigger and bigger. They're going to have more and more people with perhaps still with influence, but not so magnetized. Have I just made up a word?
Yeah, but I like it. And why not? I mean, pundits are doing it all the time. They're coming up with also, even referees are at it as well. So why not?
Why not?
How cool is it to think that maybe on Christmas morning, a girl who's just started rugby is unwrapping Mud Mall mascara? Is that because you can't see that unless they tweet you a picture? Like, is there a bit of you wishing you could see where every book goes and everybody that reads it?
Yeah, it would be it would be great. That's the thing with writing a book. You kind of don't really know where it's gone, or what, or like, things like that. And some people, might post a comment or a review on, on a large online book retailer. And, but it's also in shelves and bookstores around the country, which is amazing. And some people even go in and pick it up and pay for it. And, or like people might well unwrap it for Christmas or birthdays, out on paperback soon as well, Bruce. So like that is, but you can't see it all. So it is kind of like, you just kind of like, you've done this thing, you've created this thing, and it's like, now off you go. Off you go on your journey and see what happens. So yeah, it'd be lovely to. It's really nice to sort of get that feedback from some people, and someone's really enjoyed it, or actually what I really like actually is it might be a young girl that's just started playing rugby. What I also really like, it might be a guy that's played rugby for their life and has just picked it up to read another rugby book. That's what I really like. Someone that's not picked it up because it's a book by a woman. They picked it up because it's a book about rugby and it's just a slightly different take on it. That's what I really like, actually.
Yeah, that's me. I picked it up because it's a book about rugby, and I wanted to hear your story. I spoke to a couple of former Irish internationals, and I was telling them I'd read Rala's book. Rala was the kit man for Ireland and for the British Lions, and they were like, "How the hell do you know about Rala?" I was like, well, I'd read other stories of people taking the mickey out of Rala, and I wanted to read Rala's side of it. So I even read the Kitman's autobiography. So I love it. And whenever I go into a bookshop, I tend to move yours to the front of the shelf.
Amazing. Thank you.
I put it in front of James Haskell's.
Oh,
So
lovely.
there's no
Yeah.
way he's ever coming on the pod. If he ever, no, that he'll listen to this, but if he ever listens to this, he's going to hear about it.
He doesn't need any more help with his book sales, does he?
No,
He's doing all right. He's got
yeah,
another one out, hasn't he, recently?
yeah. No, I've started his book. I'm on it just now. Yeah, I've started his book. It's no Mud Mall Mascara, let's face it, but I'll give it a go. So the future then for rugby, how involved do you want to be? Are you happy to sit and watch? If somebody comes and chaps the door and said, can you help me? Can you mentor? Can you coach? Are you interested? Will you administrate? What would you say?
I ask myself this question every day.
And you've
kind of
got
this,
plenty of time because you've not just started a new career and got a 2-year-old and all the other things. That you've got heaps of time on your hands.
yeah. I have this kind of turmoil that goes on all the time. Like, how much do I want to? Part of me just wants to say, right, I'm off. I've done my book. I've given a huge amount to the game. I have got stuff back as well. I'm kind of that's my time. I'm done. Part of me does feel like that, but I kind of think, oh, I could just sit in the garden, watch my daughter run around with a cup of tea, or maybe gin and tonic in the evening, and just enjoy it and just not feel guilty about not doing other stuff. And then part of me was like, oh, I still need to be involved, but like, why do I need to be involved? Like, is that purely just for kind of self gratification or something? I don't know. And this is what I'm trying to work out. I mean, my time's a bit limited. I was taking this new career. I've got an amazing daughter. I'm still doing some other kind of side sort of business stuff as well. And but I do have time. If I really wanted to do it, I would do more. I was really fortunate enough to be able to do a fair amount of commentary and stuff like that. But I see new people, coming into the game. As I said, mentioned earlier, Mo Hunt, brilliant and on commentary, and Emily Scarrett will be in there when she retires. Nolly's doing her stuff. Maggie's still going strong, and I kind of think actually they're doing a brilliant job. Even if I wanted to do that now, I wouldn't have the time to prep myself to do it. So, I love commentary if I got the odd opportunity, but I it's the time as well, isn't it? And actually, do you know what? Maybe I will just sit back and be a fan now and kind of watch other people and be happy for other people, which is not always easy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I'll set up a little rugby club at my school, perhaps. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just start watching rugby on telly again. But that's not been a quick answer to that, has it? Because I don't know the answer myself. I don't know. I'm on a sort of small committee thing with World Rugby, but even now I'm like, do I want to do that? Do I not? Have I got time? Like the game doesn't necessarily need me anymore. I can be there if I want to be there. Like I don't know, Bruce. You'll have to
The,
ask me in a few
the,
months' time. I really
the,
enjoyed it because I love chatting about it. So it's been I really enjoy this. I enjoy things like this, and I hope that I can still sort of chat about things occasionally. I still don't know what level I want to be involved in the game. Maybe when my daughter's a little older, I'll be one of those parents that comes welcomed back into a club and will be on the side of the pitch at mini rugby. And then I probably won't say no when someone says, "Oh, look, here's a whistle," or "Can you just help out with the under sevens?" Oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that, and then I'll do so. That's probably what's going to happen, I think. And maybe until then, I'll just have a bit of time out.
Brilliant. Well, can I just say the game does need you and the game wants you, but it's there when you're ready for it and not before. So here's the scenario. The phone goes, Spence, we're getting the band back together. We're going to play a game. Modified rules. It's on Saturday afternoon, and then we're going to have a big party after. Are you in? What do you say?
If the modified rules are a 5 metre by 2 metre pitch, and you can only maul, I would be there like a shot.
Spoken like a true English international forward.
Love it. If it involves anything wider than that, I maybe joking aside, my body's a bit broken. I've got arthritic knees. I can't really run very well. I miss it terribly, right? And if my body wasn't as broken, I would probably find myself back on a pitch because I just love it. You can't replicate it anywhere else, can you? Like whatever level you've been playing at, not playing rugby again is quite difficult, whatever level. So I would be there for the party, absolutely. I probably what I would do is just find myself on the pitch, and then I wouldn't be able to walk for 2 weeks. My husband like, what have you done? So yeah, I would be there in some capacity, absolutely.
And even if that phone call's in 30 years' time, you know that Rocky Clark is going to be there with her boots in a Tesco bag ready to go.
Rocky would still be playing, or any other supermarket that is available. I prefer to put mine in a Waitrose bag, but
yes,
I was a plastic bag, boot bagger. Yeah, she'd still be playing. Rocky would still be playing. Tamara would probably be, would she be coaching or something? Maggie would she be there? She'd be like wandering around the edge, wouldn't she? Nolly would be very excited somewhere, just very excited, very bubbly excited. Graham would be moaning about the scrums or something. It would be brilliant. I do, like you get so close to some people, particularly, sort of like at club, but then, talking about England, 2006, I was involved in the World Cup. So you get so close to those people, this group of people, and then just all disperse off, and it's to have that kind of moment with those people again would be incredible. Just kind of be in a room with some of them again. But yeah, it's a funny old thing, isn't it? You kind of like for 80 minutes and the time around that, you would just do absolutely everything possible for the person next to you or the person in front of you, wherever you would literally do everything. And then some of the people I've stayed in contact with, some of them you hardly see them again. It's a funny old thing.
So while I love Clubland and we've spoken about the clubhouse, for me the most important room in rugby is the changing room. Is that the bit you're talking about that you actually miss?
Oh my goodness, yeah, that feeling before a match, isn't it? And you're in that huddle and you're kind of looking into each other's eyes and you're about to go and do this thing together, and that building of emotions and kind of just watching everyone, and you're bonded so hugely together. And then you hear the stud, you don't get them so many now, do you? But you hear the studs and that sound when you're running out onto, I used to walk, conserve energy. When you're going out onto the pitch, the sound of the studs, you're like, you're going to go and do this thing together that you all love. And then coming back into the changing room, that kind of, often it was good. Well, actually club was a bit more difficult, but that kind of those shared emotions afterwards, that kind of being together, that kind of is just incredible. Like, they're a huge part of my memories. Yeah, the changing room. Just where else can you get that?
There's two bits to that. Well, I don't know if you wanted an answer to that, but nowhere. To me, there's nowhere like a changing room. No. And you said about playing. I've been a coach for a long time, and it is a very distant second to being a player. There is nothing better in the world than being a player and in that changing room. But there's two bits to that story you told there. My daughter Katie was desperate for studs. She was desperate for boots, and I bought her boots. She didn't really want them to play. She wanted them for the noise.
Oh, it's amazing noise.
She'd been to so many games and she'd seen players come across the concrete or the slabs onto the grass, and she loved the noise. And I was like, yeah, you're definitely mine. You are definitely my daughter, because there are certain things, and changing rooms, that bond, that emotion, we see each other at the most vulnerable, at the strongest, at the most optimistic, at the most broken. And that's why I hate cameras in changing rooms.
I would have banned them, Bruce. If they were about when I was still captain, I would have banned them. You're not allowed in here. And I don't care who's involved, what TV's involved. That's our space. No one else is allowed in there. So, you know, I kind of look at that now and I think, well, I just wouldn't let them in. Just wouldn't let them in. What are they going to do if all the players say they can't come in? They're not going to cancel the game, are they? So I just think it's some things are private, and that definitely is one. And I watch it now. I'll be like, no, they're not allowed.
So can you give me a moment that you are allowed to share? Because some of those moments should never ever go further. But is there anything in the changing room? Is there a moment? Is there a game where you thought, I'd give anything to be there? Was it the anticipation before? Was it the celebration after? Was it? Is there one that if you could bottle and take every night before bed that you would?
There's probably a few, and yeah, the change room at Folk was brilliant. Just there with your best friends. Team talks at university. My amazing captain Pairs was just brilliant because she just made me just feel just so amazing. From the England point of view, I loved the change room before and after our 2009 victory over New Zealand at Twickenham. And the best thing about the warm up was it got shortened. Because the men's game, there was an issue with the referee or something, and then that game was going on and on and on. So we had to stay in the change room for longer. So we had exercise bikes in the change room and stuff. So we were kind of starting to do a warm up in this. Well, I mean, they're quite palatial, the change rooms. Well, ours wasn't like the men's, you know, it was a bit smaller, obviously, but it was still quite big compared to most change rooms. But relatively speaking, it was quite a small space to warm up in. So all that kind of charged energy and emotion was kind of contained in these walls. And then when we did go out for a warm up outside, it was like only like 10-15 minutes. So we were hugely focused. We weren't kind of wandering. And that was quite an incredible warm up, I think. And then obviously the feeling after that, beating the Black Ferns, the champagne in the change rooms, just this absolute euphoria at what we'd just done was just, I mean, I would go back there if I could. That was a butterfly moment.
Yeah, I love that. And those are feelings that it's hard to give anybody else, isn't it? You had to be there, you had to be in that space, in that moment. You could, and if there was a camera phone there, yeah, we'd have seen it, but you can't feel it.
No. Yeah, it would, and I think as soon as you put a camera in there, it's not real, is it? It's not. You're aware that it's there. You're kind of, something's taken away, isn't it? But it's yeah, some incredible moments in some quite sad moments in change rooms as well, but some yeah, pretty special times.
So when Ian McGeechan spoke to the Lions, he in one of his many speeches, he said, in 30 years' time, there'll just be a look. Do you have that when you bump into people, that there's just a look and your husband goes, oh, she's off again? Or is there a look? Is there a moment? Is there a shared giggle at something?
Oh, I think you'd always have that, wouldn't you? You've been so close to people. I think actually that, you know, particularly with folks, but also when I was with Aylesford, and they're the club that I went to when I first retired, and then to play some social rugby, and then we got promoted again, ended up back in the Premiership. So they were short of a coach, so I said I'd coach, but then I missed that feeling, so then I changed myself into a player coach to get that feeling back in the changing room. But I think with those players, because we were just fighting so hard every week just for survival, just to stay in the Premiership, which actually then led on to Harlequins, and then obviously their win with the Premiership this season. Because we fought so hard, we became so close, that team. And I just remember, looks between eyes in the changing room. There were some funny moments though in that. There was one moment when it was when I was captain or player coach, and I didn't realise someone who'd sort of left the game to have a baby, and I didn't know her. This was before my time at the club. She came back to be involved in the club, and I didn't realise that one of the players said, why don't you just come and join up, with a warm up and sort of getting in the change room and getting used to. And I didn't know who she was, so I was like, who's that person? Anyway, I just kind of got on with it. And then she was there in the change room as well, and then she was there in the huddle. But she wasn't just there in the huddle. She was also there accompanied by a breast pump, because she was still breastfeeding her daughter. So I was stood there delivering this team talk with this person I didn't know next to me. I don't, pumping breast milk into this little bottle. And I was trying to get this like really serious, and then I think it's gone too far. I can't say anything now. I can't say who and that was a really funny moment. Or it's like, other funny moments when someone just said something in their talk that just stupid, or like timing of it, and you're looking around and you're like, who's going to laugh first? But yeah, there were some brilliant moments in that change room. That was particularly unique moment. It was quite funny.
The changing room is the place where you don't have to grow up.
No.
You totally regress. As soon as you go into a changing room, you go back to being a 16-year-old idiot.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, at Club Lounge, you do, yeah. England was a bit different. I spent a lot of my England career looking after Heather Fisher and making sure she had everything she needed. And then I'm like, right, now I need to get changed. Have you got this? Have you got that? You're right. Like, yeah. You kind of make sure everyone else is all right, don't you? And then go, oh, hang on, I need to get ready too. But yeah, some special moments.
So we've not even touched on 5 Grand Slams and all those things. What you mentioned something earlier before I hit record. What opportunities have come because you were Catherine Spencer, the rugby player?
Oh goodness, yeah. I mean, my life probably was. My whole business probably I wouldn't have done if I hadn't been Catherine Spencer, the rugby player. So this speaker, which I still have now, is still trickling along. Got to decide what to do with it. But that was based on a huge kind of start with a sort of network of hugely valuable contacts. I didn't realise while I was still playing how valuable this network becomes. And I wouldn't have had the confidence to set up my own public speaking business. I wouldn't have got into public speaking, which I absolutely love, if I wasn't Catherine Spencer, probably England rugby captain. I've been involved with Tag Rugby Trust, which is an amazing charity, which I probably wouldn't have got involved in the same way unless I was Catherine Spencer, rugby player. And that's been a huge part, and still is a huge part of my life. Incredible. The whole other podcast on that. And so that has been brilliant. And various other things that you pop up in life, or you go to certain events, or you do different things, or you're on stage. I went to Hong Kong. I'm not really a fan of Sevens, if I'm honest, but I went out to Hong Kong a few years ago to be one of their ambassadors, and have a nice time and go to different events. And it was Dodgy Weir fundraiser actually one evening, and oh my goodness, a ridiculous amount of legends in the room, all male. They're incredible, people that sort of similar age to me, or people that I'd looked up to, or people that I'd watched. And at the end, they invited all the legends up onto stage, and they named them one by one, and they called out their name, and they called out my name as well. And so I was stood there on this stage with all these just incredible male rugby players, and I was there too. And I was just like, that was one moment where I was just like, this is quite, I didn't take a photo of it. It was just this thing in this event that, I was away from, and it was just amazing. And I think at one point I wouldn't have gone up. I'd be so embarrassed. But no, they don't mean me. They don't mean me. But I was like, yeah, I should be up there. And I just felt like that was one moment when I was like, I can't believe I'm here. Really. Pinch myself a little bit. That was
brilliant. Hong Kong's a land of opportunity. I'm going to get in touch with Martin Murray because I'm sure there's photographs of that. Martin Murray will be able to get photographs of that.
That would be amazing. Hong Kong was certainly it was a unique one, wasn't it?
Yeah. Sometimes one chai gets you and you're not sure what happened next, but we'll leave that for another pod. But can I just say, you have just committed to another pod, by the way. I heard it and it's recorded. I did hit record this time. So yes, that is happening. Now, you told me you've been on Eggheads.
The worst thing is, Bruce, I've been on it twice. The first one really should be a warning sign not to go on it again. The first one was, Tamara was on it. I think Sue Day, Maggie was on it. We all did terrible. Actually, I didn't do too badly. I got 2 right, and I got to sudden death. And I got I was so annoyed about it. I'm still annoyed about it now. I got my answers wrong. I'm really annoyed about it. But as a team, we did terribly. We went on as a women's rugby team, and we weren't good. And then I went back on 4 years ago as part of a sort of celebrity series, women's sports. And myself and Maggie was there again. She pops up everywhere. Goldie Sayers, who's brilliant. One of my speakers. Ebony, Rainford, Brent, and Sarah Stevenson. It was quite a nice group. Anyway, so we went back on as a kind of I think they called us ladies who lunge.
Oh,
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. But I did even worse. I only got one question, and it was just embarrassing. I should have got. I knew the questions with the pressure of the moment, and I was sat next to Judith, going up against Judith. Just oh my goodness. Yeah, I am not. Going on it again.
So
Ever.
you're not one for the pub quiz team then.
I quite like a quiz actually. I quite like a pub quiz. Egghead's format didn't do me any favours. But I quite like a pub quiz. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm brilliant. I enjoy it. I quite enjoy thinking that, oh yeah, I know that, but I really don't.
Yeah, you're there for the entertainment. And now, I mean, you're now a teacher. I reckon you'd be a cool teacher. I reckon you're the kind of teacher that kids would come home and go, Mum, Dad, you'll never guess. And is there a copy of this in the school library? Please tell me there's a school library.
There is a school library, and
please tell me there's a copy.
I am going to take some to give to the school library. I haven't done as yet, but I will do. I haven't got a classroom this year. I'm hoping I'll have one next year, in which case there will be a copy of that, maybe a shirt up somewhere, or something just to kind of help to tell a story to the kids. But yeah, I've spoken to a few, and actually a teacher said to me the other day they were watching some of my rugby stuff, which is quite nice. I wasn't even in the classroom, so that was quite nice. And yeah, it will be there. Its presence will be there.
So last day of term, kids have brought in their board games, and then you put on the Happiness Is podcast for them to watch on YouTube. It's got to happen.
Oh yeah, it will do. Yeah, of course it will.
So you need to give a shout out to your school.
Oh, I should do, shouldn't I? So the school that I am teaching at is Brock Hill. It's actually called Brock Hill Performing Arts College. It's near Folkestone actually. It's a beautiful school. It's got loads. It's got a farm on the school, so I kind of drive in the morning and I can hear like the chickens bucking, and then there's some cows and sheep and the pig that's just had piglets, and it's like what a lovely school and really nice environment. So yeah, that's the school that I'm at, and really lovely school to be working at.
That sounds absolutely amazing. I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, Catherine, I've loved talking to you. It's been so great to finally be kind of face to face. We've been in touch over a period of time, so thank you so much. But I ask all the guests to finish off, and you've promised to come back, which I'm pleased with because we could talk for a long time. For you, happiness is
gin and tonic on a beach, looking at the sea, watching my husband play with my daughter.
I love it. I love it. I saw something this morning saying, why do I have to be a mum 24 hours a day? Can I not be a dad? And I thought, I wonder what that means, but I love that.
Oh, that's a third podcast talking about mums and dads and parents, and don't get me started on that. I feel maybe another blog series coming along, but yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much. I've absolutely loved speaking to you, and all the very best for the future. And I've got no doubt you're going to be a fabulous teacher, whatever school you end up in. And I think they're going to be trying really hard to keep hold of you.
Absolute pleasure. No, it's been so nice chatting to you, Bruce. And yeah, thanks for supporting rugby in the way you do, and women's rugby.
Oh, shucks. Thank you so much. Brilliant to speak to you. All the very best. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have had an absolute ball with my birthday buddy. Although, as you'll agree, those people who are on Facebook and YouTube, she looks much younger than I do. I had a much harder paper round than Catherine, obviously. Brilliant messages. The future is bright, I think, for Catherine, and hopefully somebody somewhere is going to be able to convince her that her time and opinions and experience are much needed to keep the game improving. Many of these players now are standing on the shoulders of people like Catherine Spencer and enjoying the fruits of her labour. We didn't get close to so much, so I'm delighted that she quite innocently said that she's coming back on. So watch this space for Catherine Spencer part 2. My name's Bruce Aitchison from Happiness is Egg-Shaped. You can catch us on Acast, Spotify and Apple. Please leave a review if you've enjoyed it, and you can subscribe on YouTube and watch us on Facebook. And if you like, leave a comment about people you would like to see feature in future. We've got a cracking guest list so far. We've got more in the can. I hope you've enjoyed it. I absolutely love it, and I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon. All the very best, and my happiness is egg-shaped.